Hey guys, I was live and I didn't even know it. How is everybody doing tonight? I hope you guys are all doing well. It looks a little frightening outside, especially here in Utah. Snow in the forecast. Finally, it's been so beautiful and we need snow. I'm not much of a snow person and I could do without the cold temperatures, but we do need snow, right? For water next summer, so I'm okay with that. So, I apologize again. I haven't gotten a video out sooner. I've been having some dental issues and I'm kind of still in the middle of that, trying to figure things out. So if I seem a little discombobulated or like I don't know what I'm talking about, then that is probably why. So I apologize again for that. But I'm super excited because I was able to get my YouTube channel up and going. So I was able to upload all of my videos from Facebook there, and now you can go there and watch everything in order, so everything kind of flows and makes a little bit more sense instead of us having all of this time in between videos and you don't remember what happened the last time what we talked about. So we have talked about the black cumin seed, we've talked about the black raspberry seed, we've talked about the Chardonnay grape seed, and now we get to talk about D-Ribose. So it is the last ingredient of our soul. Finally, it's been weeks. There's only 4 ingredients in this thing and it's taken us this long. My fault, my bad. But I'm excited to talk about the D-Ribose. So ever since starting Rain International and going to the product seminars and hearing different experts talk about these products, they've all really gone into depth about the seeds, and rightfully so, right? All of these seeds are, as we have learned, amazing, super antioxidant, super anti-inflammatory, omegas, among other things, a plethora of things, right? So they're all good stuff and they need to be talked about. But they hardly would ever mention D-Ribose. And D-Ribose, in my research so far that I've learned about D-Ribose, is amazing. All I knew up to this point is that it was a 5-carbon sugar and it was already naturally occurring in our bodies. So I thought this video is going to be so short and simple and straightforward. Then I started doing my research and a lot of information. And unfortunately for you guys, I get to give another biology lesson. So I know you all look forward to my biology lessons because they're so in-depth and super thorough and intense. Not. So anyway, you get to suffer through another one of my biology lessons. So it's going to be super basic. My understanding of the body, again, I'm no scientist or anything like that. So super, super basic. That's good for me. So my disclaimer, I'm not here to promote any healing or prevention or miracle whatever in preventing any illness or disease from happening. I'm simply here for your information purposes. So with that, we will get into D-Ribose and our biology lesson. Looking forward to that. Hopefully, like I said, I don't sound too crazy. So anyway, we first need to talk about our cells when we start to talk about D-Ribose. We need to go into our cells. So did you know that our bodies contain over 100 trillion cells? 100 trillion cells make up our bodies. Our cells come in thousands of different types. They each have their own shape and size. They have if they didn't have their own shape, they wouldn't be able to perform their own task. So they each have their own task. They can't compensate anywhere in their cell. So if they're disformed in any way to their function, then they're a dysfunctional cell and they can't work properly. So we have all of these cells in our bodies. They each have their own shapes and sizes. And did you know as well that our cells are so tiny, obviously, right? Because you can't see them without a microscope. They're so tiny that over 10,000 of them fit on the head of a pin. That isn't a pin, it's more of a needle, but just to put it in perspective a little bit, they're so teeny tiny. 10,000 of them can fit on the head of a pin. And incidentally, while we're talking about cells, did you know that our cells undergo 500 quadrillion chemical reactions every second? Whoa, right? When I read that, I thought, every day, every couple of weeks, right? No, every second. 500 quadrillion chemical reactions take place in our cells. So we have all of these cells. They each have their own task. Liver cells do liver cell things. Heart cells do heart cell things. Kidney cells, so on and so on and so on. We each have all of these cells that do their own task, and they have to be their own shape and their own size. Now, each of our 100 trillion cells has to create its own energy. Each cell creates its own energy. A cell can't borrow energy from the next cell over. It can't share its energy. It has to make its own energy. So let's talk about energy for a few minutes. So energy is required in our bodies, right? Our intestines need energy to move our food through. Like our brains need energy to create all of those electrical impulses that go on. Our heart needs energy to beat. Even things we don't think about, those things that require energy, require energy. Sorry, got a call. Anyway, every single cell in our body consumes up some amount of energy. So energy is referred to by biologists as the energy currency of life. It's life. We need energy, right, to live. If our hearts aren't beating, which requires energy, then we're not alive, right? So we need energy. So our bodies consume large amounts of energy in a day. And this energy that our body makes is called ATP. So I won't torture you with trying to pronounce the scientific name for ATP, but we'll just know that ATP is energy. So in each of our cells, energy or ATP is made, it's consumed, and then it's reprocessed. So it's made, consumed, and recycled. This continual flow, this cycle that keeps us in a continual flow of energy. So this is where ribose comes in. Ribose is an essential building block. Ribose is an essential building block for the creation of ATP. Without ribose, our cells could not create ATP, and we wouldn't have any energy. So each of our trillion cells creates its own energy. This energy that's made, consumed, and reprocessed. We need this ATP, our energy, and how we make ATP is through ribose. Now, ribose is made from glucose. Glucose is in our cells as well. Glucose is just a simple sugar that makes up our ribose. So if our cells are lacking energy, then the cell takes the glucose and it will convert this glucose, which we need to make ribose, and it will convert that into lactic acid. Oh, I'm sure we've all heard of lactic acid, right? The buildup in our muscles and in our tissues that creates muscle soreness, stiffness, achiness. So if our cells are lacking the energy, if our cells are lacking energy, then it can't make the ATP. And so it takes the glucose and makes lactic acid out of it. So that's a problem. It's not only a problem for creating stiffness and soreness in our bodies, it's also a problem because that glucose is no longer available to make ribose, which we need to make ATP, which is our energy. So we need to have ribose readily available. It's required for the synthesis of ATP in our cells. So now let's talk about our hearts for a second. So did you know that our hearts beat 100,000 times per day? Crazy, 100,000 times per day. Our hearts are pumping 300 quarts of blood through every hour. 300 quarts of blood every hour are pumping through our hearts. Would you agree with me in saying that that takes some energy? I think we can all agree that that definitely takes up a lot of energy. Now, our hearts are always beating, right? They don't stop. Even when we're sleeping, they keep going. Our poor hearts, right? They're not like, I need a break. I need a break. I need to rest. I need to recharge. I've got to rest. I've got to fill up so I can be healthy and beat again tomorrow, right? They don't. They keep beating. Otherwise, we would have no life. So we need our hearts to beat properly and function well. So pumping blood is really important to us, right? We need our blood pumping to keep those nutrients and oxygen flowing through our bodies. So our hearts store enough ATP for about 10 beats. So one ATP can create about 10 beats of our heart. That's how much energy is stored in there. So our heart cells contain, or they store at any given time, less than a gram of energy at any time. So there's not very much energy stored in that heart cell. However, our hearts consume over 6,000 grams of energy per day. That's a lot of energy to be consuming when it only stores less than a gram, right, per day. So our hearts consume a lot of energy, and our bodies consume all this energy. So ribose is the key component. It's the key component of this. So like I said before, in our normal bodies, 1 ATP produces about 10 heartbeats. Now athletes will use 1 ATP per every 5 heartbeats because they're requiring more energy, more oxygen flow. So they're using ATP at a lot quicker rate. However, patients with fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome may take a full minute to create enough energy for 1 ATP, which only creates 10 heartbeats, right? We all know that our hearts need to beat more than 10 times per minute. So in an already fatigued body, people with fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome, their energy is very depleted. They also need extra energy to go to their muscles because they're so sore and so tired that they are requiring more energy to go to the tissues of the body and correct the problem of soreness. But they're not getting it. Their cells are so depleted of this. Every cell in our bodies require a constant supply of energy. If this process is diminished or damaged in any way, then our cells are damaged, right? And what can that lead to? It can lead to damage of an organ. So D-ribose is simply critical for our energy production. So there have been some scientific studies, and I kind of want to just go over a couple of them. So in patients with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, were tested, a certain number, I don't know all of the details, but a certain number of these patients were tested in the areas of energy, sleep, mental clarity, pain intensity, and well-being. Now, the conclusion of this study, 66% of the participants reported significant improvements in these areas. Not just a little improvement or I saw some difference, but I really don't know. They saw significant changes and improvements. Athletes, high endurance athletes, were tested with Ribose. They need more, right? Because they're always going and going and going. They need the Ribose to be available quickly. So in tests done on athletes, their exercise output went up, it increased, their fatigue went down, and they found that it was protecting their hearts, which is vital for us, right? Especially athletes who are putting their poor hearts through a lot of work. They're like working overtime, big time. So we can see how blood flow can affect our production of ATP, right? Our heart pumps out the blood to our tissues and our muscles and our cells, giving them oxygen and nutrients. And we know what can happen if a cell is energy deficient. It can become damaged. So Ribose is critical in making ATP. Also, cardiologists have found that in their patients, when given Ribose, have improved significantly. They've used Ribose for that, and it's been helping them. So, just a little analogy here. So it's like our cars, right? We go to the gas station, we fill up our car with gas, we drive around, drive through the mountains, drive around town, take the kids to school, go to the store, and we watch the fuel level drop and drop and drop and drop. And what happens when we run out of gas in our car? It stops working, right? We can't go anywhere anymore. And that's the same thing with our cells. We need to keep those nutrients, whatever it is, constantly into our bodies so that we can have healthy cells, so that they can refuel. And things affect this, of course. We have our age, of course, right? Age, as we get older, these processes slow down. We have muscle or heart disease that's going to affect this. So if we don't refuel our cells, they're going to run out of energy. And sometimes the energy production is going to be a lot slower, and sometimes we won't be able to refill that cell at all. So have you ever heard anyone complain about leg soreness, shortness of breath, or extreme fatigue? We need to refuel our cells. So whether you're an athlete looking to increase your recovery after a workout, right? Who wants to be sore for 3 days after you work out? I don't, and I always am. So whether you're an athlete who's looking to recover quicker, or if you're a grandparent who just wants to have enough energy to play with the grandbabies, right? That's super important. If you're a heart patient who just dreads climbing those stairs because when you get to the top, you're completely out of breath. Or whether you're just a regular, ordinary person who works too much, who doesn't eat right, and who doesn't get enough sleep, right? That's a lot of us. We need to refuel our cells. Our energy is just being depleted. So Ribose Ribose contained in our soul is a metabolic fuel our bodies use to refill our cells and recharge our batteries. So that is it. That's all I have prepared on D-Ribose. But if you want to Google it, a ton of information will come up. If you go to pubmed.gov and type in Ribose in the search bar, you will get your fill of reading material, believe me. So, as I said before, my YouTube channel is up and running. I will put a link to that down in the comments. If you want to subscribe, I would love it, and I would love you forever if you did that for me. I'll put a link also to my website, my email, if you want to go check out the other products a little bit more in depth. So I hope you guys have a great night. Be careful if you're out driving in the weather, and I will look forward to seeing you guys next time. Have a good night.